first of all, I want to thank all of our wonderful panelists here for participating in this and this panel about the journey down the crown path. If you would like to, let's go. I don't. It's the orientation on the screen. I always forget if it's the same for everybody, but just one of you at a time. If you want to just give your name, how far down the crown path you are, and about how long you've been playing.
I'll start. I'm Uni from Port Union. I've been in the game for about 6 to 7 years now, and I think I've got about 8 crowns.
Yes.
Oh, you keeping track?
It's kind of my job too.
The scoreboard, like you just.
Yeah.
Oh.
Arden, you want to go next?
Sure. My name's Arden. I am from the Shire of Terminus in Salisbury, Maryland, and I've been playing since about end of 2015. So I think my math is almost 6 years. and I have 10 crowns.
All right, Mono, you want to go next?
I'm Sir Hitorimono, the Scapegoat, Knight of the Crown. I've been playing since March 2006.
Oh, you're last. We're waiting on you.
Pharoah, Knight of the Crown. Been playing since signing in since 2002.
Excellent. All right,
Been
so
playing since 2000.
So thank you again, for agreeing to join me and do this. Thank you everyone who is either watching this live or watching the recording later on. And last but not least, a very big thank you to Denkry Blackwater, who's doing our recording and editing and will be getting this video up for us so other people can enjoy this as well. Woo, thank you, everybody. So without further ado, let's move on and start some questions. So let's start with a nice positive one. Everything's positive, but let's start with, and anyone can, whoever wants to jump in first, but what was or is your favorite office to hold?
I'll answer that one. King, Monarch, yeah. In that office, you can affect some real change that not only helps out your kingdom, but possibly helps out all of Amtgard.
For me, my favorite was Prime Minister. I've always been kind of a more behind the scenes type person. Prime Minister was how I got onto the path, and I did 3 terms as Kingdom Prime Minister. So I enjoyed it.
Yeah, I'd say Region is probably my favorite, at least at the kingdom level. I think I really got to try and stretch the bounds of what I could do on a kingdom-wide scale with some of the competitions and stuff like that, and really dig into a rain theme that was given, that was provided by the monarch. And it's just I don't want to say it was a little less stressful than Monarch, especially after doing it for a year and a go.
I liked Regent, but I also PM was nice. Regent gave me a chance to spread out and be creative, and then Regent, like being behind the scenes and pushed in some paperwork.
Oh, cool. So a good broad spectrum of what people like to do, and for different reasons. So next thing I wanted to ask is, so, you've all been on this path a fair bit. And if there was one thing that you could change about the path for Crown Knight, what would it be and why?
I think one of the biggest changes has already kind of been implemented with the change from the crown point system to the Order of Crowns. I think that was probably one of the most prohibitive like systems in place before, and then now it's a little more cut and dry instead of just like, well, no, you don't have enough. So
Sorry, it's my phone in the background.
So for
I
the,
definitely,
sorry, go ahead.
I definitely agree with Alan in regards to the Orders of the Crown being a lot better than Crown Points. Also, I believe with the switch over from that, we are also including in GMR more, and champions no longer being limited. So that I think would have been the only other changes that I would have made, but they, like I said, already fixed it. So I think Crown's in a good spot right now.
and it kind of unnerved PM a little bit. Let PMs not be limited by just the 1 point. I think was how it was written, or at least on Archipora.
No,
I must be thinking of something else then.
it was champion.
Oh,
Yeah,
champion.
champion
Yeah.
used to be, and it used to be in the rules of play. Champion was 1 point.
That's it.
Like
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
it. No matter how many times you did it.
And GMR wasn't even listed at all. So
Yeah. That goes to show I've never been champion.
Well, maybe that's the next one you need to do.
Absolutely not. I hate writing battle games.
And one of the best things that I've seen about the crown points is it took away from the subjective and made it objective. It stopped being about opinions and it started actually being about putting in the work. Because crown points used to be subjective to where if you had a bad week, somebody could just nerf your whole ring.
Mm-hmm.
Now it's more the entirety of it, and that's a lot better than what it was.
I think not even only that, like it limits it so that people who, for whatever reason, aren't able to run for Kingdom Office, people who are at baronies and duchies and stuff like that, they can still go towards their path, working their way up to it without having to necessarily like, yeah, you can't serve Kingdom Office, so you just can't be a Crown Knight. Sorry. To a certain extent.
Mm-hmm. Uni, how about you? How do you feel the crown path is right now?
I think when I started earning the crown points, or the ladder crown was a lot better, because like it's been said, it's more it's not based on somebody's opinion on what you're doing. It's actually what you're actually doing for the kingdom.
Okay. So for all of you, how did you get started down the crown path? Like, what was your introduction into holding offices, whether it be at park level or kingdom level or whatever?
I was sort of drafted.
Completely accidental.
I think that's everybody's answer, probably. Like, hey, we need
It
this
was
job
accidental.
filled.
Exactly. That's how, hey, I can't do this anymore, so who else wants to do it? And nobody wanted to step forward. So I was like, okay, I'll give it a shot. And that was starting off as a PM.
Okay, so you started off as, I'm assuming, a park PM.
Yes.
How about the rest? What were your first offices? Did I ask you that already? I can't remember.
You asked us our favorite.
That's right. I asked you your favorite. But what was your first offices?
Yeah, mine was Prime Minister. I started out as PM at BFE because we didn't really have one. Because it was mostly just one person doing a lot of the officer positions at that park. So they like basically, we need you to do this position. I've been here 2 weeks. That's fine. We'll waive that. It's okay. And the rest is kind of how it goes.
A lot of my offers started off as pro temp because the spot needed filled. And then from there, I was just like, well, if I'm going to fill it partially, I might as well just run for it completely. But back then, crown quals used to scare me. So
No,
there
wait,
was
you
a lot
mean
of offices I avoided.
9 entries was a little bit of a, or 8, 7 entries, however it was for a duchy?
Yeah, it was. It was frightening. I know it brought a couple of people to tears.
See, my first office was technically GMR of Gehenna Plains in Iowa. But beyond that, my first out here on the East Coast would have been Prime Minister.
Was the Kingdom Prime Minister, or was it Prime Minister of your park when you moved out here?
It was a park level. I was Prime Minister of Freehold, and then I was BFE's second Prime Minister.
Yeah, I
Okay.
heard about that. You hoofed it all the way to Delaware on a regular basis from Virginia.
Yep, 2.5 hours one way, every weekend.
Ugh.
So one thing I've heard from you all, it seems to be sort of a reoccurring thing is, I took a pro tem office, or I was drafted, or I did this 2 weeks into my Amtgard career. Why do you think that is a kind of a commonality you hear among people who regularly hold offices, especially?
Burnout is real. Burnout is a thing, and people need to be aware of it. Holding offices for so long with no break in between can wear you down. And more people are more inclined to sit back and let somebody else do it than actually step up and do it themselves.
Yeah, especially at the local level, because it's a much smaller pool of people that you're pulling from. Whereas Kingdom, like in CG, we have 9 active parks, so there's a little bit of give and take from everywhere. But like when you look at like a Shire or something like that, and they only have like 5 voting members or whatever, and it's like, well, which one of us is going to draw the short straw this time? It's a kind of, I guess it probably comes from like a desire to make sure that your hobby is able to function. And just a willingness to serve. I think most people would agree with that.
Yeah, I'd have to agree with that one. That's how I got a lot of my crowns, is when the Locks was first starting off. We didn't have a lot of members, so we were continuously switching back and forth between myself and Silver and a couple others of monarchy positions, just to keep the park open so people could come out and have fun.
I think for me, literally every time that I run for office, it's because I've seen a need not being fulfilled, and I felt that I could fulfill that need.
Okay, that's fair. So, obviously, we said that burnout is a thing. Burnout is, for various reasons. I know we have heard mentioned that, burnout from, like I say, a Shire, because you've got, 5 people and 5 offices that might need to be filled depending on your kingdom scope or whatever. But what else do you think can lead to burnout other than just, need to hold these offices?
I think a bad monarchy team that's supporting, what the rest of the whatever particular office it is. If you just get in a absolutely I'm loath to say toxic person or persons in a monarchy team that just makes you want to not hold office ever again, it can set you back a bit and make you really rethink, do I really want to use this as my time that I'm putting forward something that I'm supposed to enjoy? And when you deal with somebody who's constantly no, this is bad. Oh, you're doing a terrible job. And it's negative from inside and outside of your monarchy team can really put a damper on your willingness to step back into it again.
I would agree with that. Sometimes you forget to look at it as a hobby and a game, and it takes on a life all its own. And then if you're one of those people who refuse to give up or refuse to give in, you push yourself harder and harder, and to the point where you start, impacting yourself at a detriment. And it does not help when you have people outside of your purview who are naysayers or who have critical, conversations about you when they don't know the least about what's going on. So it's always a challenge to try to find that balance. But if you ever find yourself feeling that burnout, take a step back, because your mental health is much more important than this game.
Okay, so taking that comment of, if you need to take a step back, and just, talking about burnout in general, what would you suggest for helping to mitigate burnout? Obviously, what Mo said with taking a step back, but is there anything else you can think of?
Go back to finding what you actually enjoyed about the game when you first started. Was it Office? Was it ANS? Was it just getting out on the field and fighting? If you could go back to your enjoyment, I advise you to run there.
I'd also expand on that and say that, like, making sure you schedule yourself, don't spread yourself too thin. Because a lot of times when people are really going hard onto the service side of things, whether that's through Office and through running events and through doing this, that, and the other, and I found myself, and I'm sure a lot of everybody else in this call has also found themselves where they kind of like, man, how did I end up with so much stuff on my plate? And like, you really have to, like, my wife told me just like last week, she's like, okay, like I was talking about doing something, and she's like, all right, yeah, you can only do this once this year though, and like you have to almost like pull yourself back a little bit, because like, even though you want to keep going and going and going, there's only so much that you're able to put up with at a certain point, and it'll become a detriment to how you interact with people in the game and how you actually do that thing that you're trying to do in the game.
Also, delegating. Like, you don't need to be responsible for every small little detail. That's how you burn out. Like, if you have to micromanage, then there's something wrong. You should try to not necessarily push off your duties, but as long as your duties are getting done, it doesn't necessarily matter who's doing them, kind of. Just make sure that they are getting done. But especially if you're starting to feel burned out, start chipping away at what you are involved in. Like, I mean, when I was Monarch, I think I was involved with like the board and like a couple committees, and that can be a lot. So I definitely wouldn't recommend that for everybody. I would definitely recommend just doing like focusing, like especially if like you're new to Office, try to focus just on the Office itself, and build on that.
Yeah, I have to
There's
agree,
one.
because
Yeah.
delegation
Yeah.
is a key part, because you do get burnt out real quick, especially in the higher offices, Monarch and Region. If you don't have anybody to help you, you will get burnt out. And it's also a good way to train, maybe it's the next person. That way you can say, well, remember when you helped me with this? That's all a Region does is, come up with this and doing that. You'd be good at being a Region. Why don't you give it a shot? So you're trying to maybe fill your position for the next 6 months.
The car salesman approach, like, hey.
Exactly.
Not that anyone on this panel has a problem with pride or anything, but one of the best things to get rid of the burnout is actually, asking for help.
I don't feel called out at all.
Yeah,
right.
Nobody on this panel would ever not ask for help.
I can't count the amount of times that Miranda has yelled at me. It's just like, what are you doing? Like, you have people to do stuff for you. Like, do it.
So on this, we talked a little bit about, maybe having people, like if they might shadow you or something. And they all had a question. They asked, do you think recruiting other people to do the job would help with burnout, or might it also contribute to your own burnout?
I guess that would depend on who you were recruiting and what was their motivation. I mean, if somebody's coming in with the intent on knowledge and they actually want to help do the job and they don't become your anchor, your burnout, I mean, that works just fine. But if you have to stop every 5 seconds to explain your job to somebody, that would, infuriate anyone.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I'd view it as the same way as when I set people up to learn how to do like a crap position for an event bid. It's really just a personal preference on like whether you want to be that person that is explaining everything piece by piece by piece, or if it's again going to be detrimental to you doing your job. Like it's I think to each their own on that one.
I think shadowing someone who's in an office works better than like basically stepping into an office that you have no idea how the office operates. Because at least if you're shadowing someone and like obviously you have that mentor-mentee relationship with them, they're going to be able to take a little bit of extra time to explain at least rudimentary like what's going on, and that should give you a better insight in regards to the position, so that way you can step into it with at least a bit more knowledge than just being a blank slate.
Yeah, it's a hell of a, like, I don't know how many people were playing at the time that I became king, but like, so I was intending on being Kingdom Regent and then ended up being Monarch due to other circumstances. So that was not my intent to, go right for Kingdom Monarch right at the get-go, so you kind of had to, like, you have to learn to be quick on your feet and your brain. But absolutely, like, working your way up, and like at least at that point I had done like baronial like Monarch, but if you have to have some basis of knowledge, or else you're basically somebody else is gonna be doing your job for you at that point if you don't know anything. And that's not a bad thing if that's all all the options that you have at your park or whatever, but it can definitely be a pretty stressful situation and can again lead to burnout pretty quickly.
But one thing a lot of people don't do in situations is reach out to the people who did the job before them. I mean, that's a wealth of knowledge right there. You'll learn one or two things: either how to correctly run Park Kingdom, or you will quickly learn what not to do.
Oh, you could write a whole book on that.
Oh, I think we did.
Sounds like a future Smith project. How Not to Be Monarch by the Monarchs of CG Past.
Ooh.
There's a part of me that wants to be in on writing that book, but there's the other part of me that wants to stay way away from there.
Yeah, I know. It's like, how much am I damning myself here by helping with this?
I mean, because eventually you got to use examples.
Oh yeah, I'm pretty sure like any of us who've had any office pretty much could like pick any point and like you look back on it, it's like, that was stupid. That was stupid. I wish I hadn't done this, this, or this. And it's just like you could just like let that stuff eat at you like forever.
So speaking of examples of what not to do. So we've talked about being in different offices. They come with different sort of challenges. And so what for all of you was probably your biggest challenge or stumbling block as you have traveled down the crown path? That you're okay talking about.
That I could do it all on my own.
Okay.
My second reign, I thought I could do it all on my own because I didn't feel I had the help that I needed, so I put all the weight on my own shoulder, and that was a mistake. That was a huge mistake. I was so burnt out, I was ready to walk away from the game. But that's why I preach now and will forever preach. Ask for help. And at one point or another, never be afraid to go to your fellow monarchy members and tell them, hey, you need to do a better job. Or, hey, I like what you did there. We're too worried about how we're going to hurt somebody's feelings that reigns go bad because we refuse to let people know that you can do better.
Yeah, it's definitely a responsibility of the team as a whole to kind of like hold each other accountable, and within a monarchy team to basically is like, hey, like this is your job, you got to do it. And I know at least I kind of alluded to it earlier, like one of my biggest struggles was like kind of dealing with that first time monarchy, my first monarch reign at the kingdom level, and not really having all all my ducks in a row to kind of figure out what was what. So I leaned on my monarchy team a lot because I think, I'm trying to remember, I believe, yeah. I leaned on my prime minister a ton, which was Montag, my first monarchy team, and he was pretty much invaluable and like making sure that I did everything that I was supposed to, and like he's just like, well, this is what you got to do, and you got to like you talked a lot about what do people are going to remember your reign for, and so that was kind of stuck with me a lot as I held different offices. But I think beyond that, like as somebody who has served both on the board and I think Mono said something about it earlier, being on the board and on the monarchy at the same time, it can be a real struggle to separate your roles there because you have the knowledge of both things, but you have to be really careful about what you say and how you say it on like social media and stuff, because I know I've gotten myself in hot water about like how people have taken stuff I've said and they're like, oh, like blah blah blah, and I'm not going to get into details about that obviously, but it can be a challenge to really separate yourself into, this is where I'm at for this is where I'm at for this, and then this is who I am outside of everything. You really have to be I can't think of a good word, but you have to separate yourself.
You have to be a master juggler.
Mm-hmm.
Uni, right now, I'd ask them, everyone, what some of their biggest like challenges or stumbling blocks for y'all have been as you've gone down the crown path.
So my greatest struggle going down the crown path, it probably was how I dealt with certain individuals. I didn't always deal with people the best way, I don't think. Some of it is how I interact with people online. Some of it was just, toxic people or me being toxic. But eventually I learned, and I'd like to think I'm better now. Mo remembers those days.
You are definitely better now, but you're never giving up the scapegoat name.
Nope, I've embraced it.
I definitely think
It will
it's
forever
easy.
be your fault.
It's definitely easy to like forget like again like how you're talking to people, because like tone is like lost so easily on social media. Like for me specifically, and I will like be like, well, I'm the monarch. It's very easy to be like, well, I'm the monarch and this is how it has to be, so I'm sorry, whatever. And then you're just like, oh man, I sounded like an asshole.
Well, sometimes that's your job, to be that person.
Yeah.
Because our job is never always going to be roses and daffodils. Sometimes our jobs are briars and freaking stonefish. We have to be the butthole sometimes.
Yeah, sometimes you have to be the person calling out toxic behavior.
But you got to be careful, though, that you're not being toxic in that calling out of toxicity.
Mm-hmm.
This is true. Yeah, that happened to me once.
Yeah, I've had to learn to curb a lot of the things that I say and how I say them, and reevaluate them 3 times before I actually put them out.
Yeah.
It's a filtered Revy Rev.
No. When I'm in office, you get Maurice. Out of office, you get Revy Rev.
I mean, there have been times where I've typed up, several paragraphs and you know send it off to one of my either someone that I'm close with or another office member or another board member, had them you know vet it, basically make sure that it was good before I actually posted it. So sometimes that's what you got to do.
And then you get back the message talking about you cannot say this.
Come on, Mo, you've only done that a couple times for me.
I mean, over the years, we've done it for each other. And sometimes just having that person you can bounce something off before you post it is the best thing on the planet.
Yeah.
Because you hear it one way, and then they hear it another way. You got to find that happy middle ground.
And then your audience actually hears it a third way.
Oh, God.
It's like when you write something up, or whenever you're writing it in your own monologue and like how you see it, and you're like everybody's the hero in their own story, and like you know you look at it and like after like you have to again separate yourself out of it, like no, that's bad. Let's send that back to the cutting room floor. I've done the same thing.
You have the thought in your mind that you're being brilliant and articulate, but you just realize later after you've already posted it, you just curse somebody out.
But hey, as long as you say bless your heart afterwards, right?
Oh, that's the Southern thing. You stay up there, Northerner.
All right, so
we will hold on to bless your heart for as long as we can.
So just want to give a quick reminder, if anyone that's watching has any questions they want to drop in chat, feel free to. But it's sort of piggybacking off some of what you all were discussing. I was wondering, what was the most difficult decision that you've had to make while you were in office?
Bans and suspensions,
Yeah.
I would have to say.
Just kind of in general, bans and suspensions.
Yeah, I can't agree with that statement more.
Because no matter what you decide on, it's always the wrong call in someone's opinion. Or it wasn't enough, or it was too much, or you just know you can't please anyone when it comes to a ban or suspension.
Yeah, somebody's gonna be the loser there.
I mean, that is never a good thing. My worst I've ever had to deal with was pretty much deactivating a park.
Yeah, demotions aren't any
That
fun either.
sucked on so many levels.
So a question from Benoit, something that was brought up a reign or two ago that people seemed to generally be supportive of, but didn't really get implemented. What are your opinions on BOD being, hold on, sorry, I just bumped into the question. What are your opinions on BOD being eligible for Crown and being recognized as part of the Crown path?
Personal,
I think
Oh, we got opinions.
Good.
Negative.
It's really tough because I think they're very closely aligned in how they go about their business most of the time. Like most of what they do is really on the upper level of like the kingdom stuff most of the time. They're both kind of dealing with like bans and suspensions on their own way. They're kind of handling like a lot of the behind the scenes paperwork. From what I've seen in the past, like most people have attributed a lot of board work to like the Flame Path or Lions. But I've seen a little bit of crossover in more recent years.
So when I first started with the board, there was no awards associated with the board. The board was completely separate from anything in game.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not necessarily opposed to that, but at the same point in time, I do think that there should be some kind of acknowledgement of the hard work that the board does. So I can see it being done in the form of awards. Now, which award works best for it? I mean, it is technically a leadership. It is technically an office. So I think Crown would work with it. I've also seen people receive roses for it as well, since technically it is service. But I think that could potentially be a bleed between the two awards, and not necessarily. I don't necessarily think Rose would be the right answer. I think Crown probably is the best suited for it.
So
Well, it's
Uni,
hard.
we're talking about thoughts on board of directors members being eligible for Crown and being recognized as part of the Crown path for doing those. I might actually jump in on this just as also a member of the board and someone who just got an award for being on the board. But I'll let you all speak first.
I think it's tough because I think a lot of these type of awards really do kind of have a lot of overlap, like Flame and Crown. No, let me try that again. Rose and Lion already get cross-contaminated with each other all the time, as it is for varying aspects of the game, as it is, and it's kind of. I think it's done a lot of times is like, well, this person's too high for this, but so let's give them this one and this other award chain, and like, hope for the best. And I don't know if that's necessarily like the right answer or not, but it really just depends on the monarch that's giving its view on it. Is usually how it ends up going, because there are a lot of check boxes that each of them fill as far as like, what is this award for? So like Lion is leadership specifically outside of office, but then it comes to the question, is board office the same as monarchy office? And I think that should probably be cleaned up either in the rules of play or in whoever's Kapor it is, just so that we, these questions don't keep coming up, because we'll probably be having these same conversations for years to come.
Well, we can't define it by Kapora because it is listed in the rules of play.
Yeah.
Crown is a ladder award, and we can't further define a ladder award.
Yeah, you're right.
So kind of bouncing off just to another audience question. So to go off of those awards, what do you think of Order of the Lion being separated from Crown? I did pull up the wording for Lion. So it's awarded for going above and beyond the call of duty in the execution of an office or for leadership outside of office while performing a service to Amtgard. And then it goes on to give descriptions.
I honestly think that Lion should be considered as towards Crown. Most paths have multiple, or most belts have multiple paths, and I think that Lion definitely fits with the Crown path more than it fits with the Flame path.
I guess there's also the option of like, never mind. What I was about to say was stupid. Don't don't take that.
I can see people thinking.
I mean, is the hope to have the board of directors members reach a plateau to where they actually become a knight? Is that the hope?
I don't necessarily think that's the hope. I just think that it's all about rewarding people for their volunteering, I think.
for pretty much thankless work most of the time.
Yeah, long hours and no thankfulness.
Yeah, nobody likes the board of directors.
They're a bunch of jerks, from what I hear.
Okay. Oh, sorry. What I was saying was, if it's not about eventually becoming eligibility for knighthood, then the monarch has the ability. Oh, I don't understand the need for it to be crowned. I mean, if the end goal is a knighthood, then what's the discussion for?
I guess that kind of is the point, isn't it? Because like, if you're saying that ladder awards should go towards it, then that basically is the goal. Like, ladder awards in one way or another, with the except, they lead knighthood one way or another. So I guess that kind of is what the goal is of the question.
I mean, that's why I'm confused about it. I'm like, what's the end goal of it? If it's for knighthood, then we're talking crown, we're talking lions, we're talking roses. If it's not for knighthood, the monarch can create, worthy awards for them.
Order of the paper pusher.
Order of the thankless.
Yeah.
I think part of it could be also that.
Quite frankly, that's a true statement. Like when Fuzz was king, he created, order of the firefighters for the admins of the kingdom page.
Yeah.
I'm like, if it's just to say thank you, then we say thank you properly. But if it's about knighthood, then we could talk about something different.
I guess it depends on people's view of like whether work like that should go towards it. In my opinion, like without the work of those people, we wouldn't have a game. You like look at AI, Amtgard International, like I'm sure those people, I'd be curious to see, because I don't really keep up with national politics. I'd be interested to see if the people that serve on AI BOD get like or ladder awards for their work on AI. That'd be kind of an interesting statistic.
I feel like I have seen at least one person from AI get awarded for it. Don't quote me on that, but I'm fairly sure. Just some things I want to throw in that are sort of relevant to that conversation. Lion was in the Crown Path for about 10 minutes in 2019.
Oh, at the Circle of Monarchs
meeting?
Yeah,
the Circle of Monarchs meeting, but it got shuffled back in favor of implementing crown points. So, but I think kind of this discussion that like the point of it is also not necessarily like, do we want the board to be a potential path for knighthood? But I think like what is the most, this part of the conversation of what are the most appropriate ways to recognize our players with, and also could lead in the conversation of, do awards maybe need to be shifted around? But I do want to go to another question from Leal. Unless there's other things you want to talk about as far as this last bit of like awards around the BOD.
Oh, that could take hours.
Move on. that's a loaded subject.
Well, let's move on for now, because we'll move on for now, but I also want to say, whenever our like quote unquote time is up, because I had schedules from like 2 to 4, if people do want to stay around and ask questions, like if any of the panelists want to stay around and ask questions or answer questions that the audience has, you're more than welcome to keep doing that. So this could be a discussion that's come back to later on, but I want to
we'll table it for now.
Yeah, we'll table it for now. So Leal, they have a question. Are there times/things that make holding office rewarding enough for you to keep going back, or is the sense of duty desire to keep the game going enough?
I mean, there definitely are times that are rewarding, like knighting players, giving players awards. It's always a great time to see people, receiving an award for something that they've done. Elevating parks is always good. Bringing new parks into the kingdom, I've always enjoyed that. So I think there's definitely a lot of enjoyable moments in holding office. And I think that for me, those enjoyable moments outweigh the negative ones. Or at least I try to make it that way.
Yeah, I'd say that some of the most like rewarding things has been people going out of their way to like either find me at an event or send a message to me on Facebook and they're like, hey, like, thank you for like whatever thing that you did. And that does, more than like getting awards for anything, like it does for me is like hearing people directly give feedback to me and, thank me for whatever I happened to do right for a change that time, it's the stuff that, like, that's why I do it. I do it because I like to, people to have a good time. That's really the meat and potatoes of it for me.
Due to tech stuff, I had told Uni that she could just message me and I'll read her response. So what keeps her going back to office is that she likes watching the players grow, like in her park, and probably presumably the kingdom as well. Farrah, what keeps you going back to the wonderful world of holding office?
At first, I got tired of being a player that complained and didn't do anything about it. And then I actually love being a part of the process of growing. And afterwards, I mean, they've already said it. Being able to recognize players for that hard work and dedication to the game is amazing. And being somebody that could stand there and say, hey, you are appreciated. Thank you. That's an amazing feeling. But I don't shy away from the hard stuff either. Because if somebody won't say it, I will.
All right, so sort of circling back a bit, we talked about, that burnout is a thing, burnout is real. And especially like as you're getting farther down the path, getting those higher and higher ladder rewards. So how do you recommend like keeping up your steam when you're at that like final like 10th masterhood to keep going?
Pace yourself. One of the worst things I've seen and I've done, I've took ownership of something that was not mine. Knighthood was not mine to take. So once I realized that, I got out of my own way.
Anybody else have thoughts on that? How to like keep going to push yourself?
I mean, I'm listening for answers on this one. I'm sitting here at 10. So, I think even
he's at the point, he's like,
yeah, I'm taking notes. I'd say even even get to like 10th and 9th, like this upper higher level awards, I would say just to like keep doing the things that you're doing that have gotten you to that point. Just keep, basically do the same stuff, keep doing it better, and that's all I can say. For the rest, I'm literally just like hanging on, listening for like every word.
I mean, like,
I think a lot of it.
if you see something go ahead.
I was gonna say, I think a lot of it boils back to like just preventing yourself from being burnt out. If you don't allow yourself to reach the burnout stage, then that will help keep you involved in it. In regards to motivation, everyone is motivated by millions of different aspects. There's not really one thing that can. There's no magic bullet for motivation, unfortunately.
When you said she agrees with Arden,
the so-called brass ring. I mean, you can sit there and desire knighthood all day long. It's not guaranteed. You can't go in there with the mindset that I'm going to do this thing and this is the end result. It's all subjective. The moment you get past that I own it, it's mine, I deserve it.
Yeah, thumbs down on that.
I guarantee you'll feel a lot better.
I'd probably say, at least in my perspective, like,
I can promise
even
you.
though this past year, whether any, even as terrible as it's been, it's kind of been a good refresher for, desire to jump back into office, because nothing's been happening. So like that was kind of like a self-imposed break, more or less, to a certain extent. And hopefully a lot of other people are the same way, and we get a whole slew of people wanting to jump back in to volunteer for stuff.
So going off that, just 1 second. So you talked about, Mo especially was talking about not feeling like you're deserved knighthood, that it's yours. But one thing that you hear is that players shouldn't want to be knights. They shouldn't strive to be knights. What are your, not strive? That shouldn't be the point of going down the path. You shouldn't want to be a knight at the end of this. What are your thoughts on that?
I'm okay with them wanting to be a knight. I'm okay with people aspiring to be knightly. But if you think just because you do a thing that this is owed to you, that's where you mess up. Because the moment that you feel that it's owed, and when it does not happen in the time frame that you choose, you become bitter. Resentment takes over. And next thing you know, you're just a butthole to everybody because you think they're personally keeping it from you. They're now they're now the gatekeepers to your belt because they don't like you. Or it could be you need to check your own attitude. Because as much as we want to talk about masterhoods and acquiring your skill, knighthood is inevitably about how you are and how you treat people. And if it's not, then that's a problem. Because that's why we have so many toxic knights as it is. Don't worry, I'll wait.
I definitely agree with Mo. It's a matter of wanting versus entitlement. You are free to want and to have the drive to go after it, as long as you don't feel entitled to having it. If that makes sense.
Almost an expectation.
Yeah.
Because like I could want and think that I deserve $1 million, don't mean I'm getting it. It's nobody else's fault that I didn't get it. And that's where I always tell myself I got to get out of my own way.
Uni says, once you think that you are, that you deserve knighthood, you lose the fun of the game.
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
When you feel that you're deserving of something and you don't get it because every award is subjective, you start finding the boogeyman everywhere. There's always somebody that's against you. And half the time it could be that you obviously, like for ANS, it's always about bad judges. Or maybe you just didn't do your seams correctly.
I know for a fact I always do my seams incorrectly, so you can confirm.
Don't forget to get rid of loose threads.
Oh God, yes. We all got to take a look at ourselves and wonder what our own motivations are. Because every time you sit back and you take ownership of it because you feel somebody's keeping you from it, take a step back. Look at what you're doing. Is that very knightly to get mad at somebody because they don't follow your opinion?
All right. So again, piggybacking off of this question a little bit, how do you feel about recommending yourself for awards?
I'm for it. I think
I'm all for it.
Yeah, I mean, you're your best advocate. Like, nobody else can advocate on your behalf like you can advocate for yourself. You know more of what you did and how you did it than anyone else. So own it. If you think that you deserve the next level, you know, tell people, why did you deserve the next level? You know?
I think it comes back down to
But
that.
in that same token, be prepared for constructive criticism.
Yeah, definitely.
It comes back to the idea of
And-
pride. Like, it's like when you're in an office, you're almost like, well, I shouldn't have to recommend myself. People should do this for me. That expectation that people should recommend you for a thing. And it's like, not everybody's really always paying attention to all that stuff. You know, they're thinking about what they got going on. Like, they're thinking about their own awards a lot of times. They're like, oh,
Much.
and they're not thinking about the person that, you know, either gives awards or runs their tournaments, or, you know, make sure that they get credits every week. They're not thinking about that. And I think like Mono hit a nail on the head. Like, nobody knows what you've done better than you do, at least in your own mind.
Exactly. I mean, how could you expect me to believe in you if you don't believe in yourself?
Yeah, it's like a confidence kind of thing. Like,
Yeah,
And
I'm gonna
also
go in
from
there with the. Go ahead. Sorry.
I would say also from the monarchy's perspective, you know, they can't be everywhere. They can't see everything. You know, you can't rely on your monarchy to be able to award all the awards. You know, so even if you're not recommending yourself other things, if you see something, say something. Recommend your friends if you see them doing something. Recommend your enemies if you see them doing something good for the game. You know, recommend everything that you see.
we could have a whole
As
like
3 monarchs
call.
sitting on this board right now, I know y'all got tired of me.
We could have a whole call about like the people not, or me having to go hunt for like awards to give people because people weren't recommending shit. And I'm just like, come on, like, there's so much for me to do. Please just like recommend people.
Yeah, we even created that Google form for people to submit, you know, their recommendations, and like people still weren't even using that.
It's
And like you didn't
nuts.
even have to include a name on that. You could do that just for yourself. And I think that's part of where our culture as a kingdom started to come from, where you can, you know, recommend yourself. Also, you know, Fuzz pushed that a lot too. So.
All right. So here, not a piggybacking question, but just another question that we received. So we see that a lot of knights have been belted into a family before they were ever knighted, and having that support help them grow. But how would someone who isn't belted gain that same support?
Ask for it.
Mm-hmm. That's what I was gonna say. You won't know until you ask. You know, you don't have to be belted to somebody to get advice.
Also, you can
say,
turn to like your households, your fighting companies, even your fellow park members.
All right, if you want support, you know, put that foot forward and ask for it. I guarantee you, the people that you ask is more impressed with you asking for help than sitting there trying to chase you down, telling you you're doing something wrong.
I think people get so caught up in the idea of like that. It comes back to the asking for help thing. Like, people don't like asking for help, even on the simple thing of like, I don't know how to go about this path, so I'm just gonna, you know, wing it, I guess, and that can work, and that sometimes that can't work.
I've never met any knight, master, or any other person of high award caliber who has got there on their own without help. Never met one.
Uni said that she was just belted recently, and for her it was just a desire in the game, to keep that going. And she'd also families, but also park helps. So it sounds like, and correct me if I'm wrong in assuming this, Uni, but since you were just belted recently, you had made it a decent way down the path without having been belted to anybody in the first place, correct?
Yeah.
I got a thumbs up, so I'm assuming that I was correct.
But she was already cruising before she even joined a family.
Yeah, her knight hasn't really done much for her recently, anyways.
I know that dude. He used to have a full head of hair. And then next thing I know, he became a knight.
You haven't known me with a full head of hair.
Well, this is true.
Wait, both of you two have no hair. Don't tell me that that's like a prerequisite, right?
No,
I mean,
it
Well,
is
this
not.
is my choice. This is my choice.
See, look at me, Arden. I have hair on my head.
But you haven't been knighted for crown yet.
Sir.
That's true. I have not been knighted for crown yet. But yeah, so yeah, it sounds like there's other avenues besides just trying to get into a belted family. We heard there was, talk to if you're in a fighting company, you can talk to those people. If you're in a household, you can talk to those people. If you're in, just you're at your park, your friends that you play with every weekend, you can talk to those people.
I think that there's a lot of resources even outside of those avenues that are available, like the Knights AMA page on Facebook. Like I see a lot of questions get answered on there for people who honestly just don't know where to go to, and there's usually a lot of really good information on that.
Yes, it is.
We're not sponsored by Knights AMA nor affiliated by Knights AMA.
No, our only official affiliation will be with Amtgard Leadership University. So I gotta move my cat.
Ragnarok.
Yay.
I mean, your cat name is Ragnarok.
Yes, I have Ragnarok and her sister Peanut Butter. These are important Crown Path questions.
Hey, cats are important.
That was awesome.
I used to have a cat that was nicknamed PM Cat.
Somehow I believe that.
You can blame Jinx for that nickname.
Jinx is
No, I'm gonna
great
blame
at
you.
nicknames.
You are the scapegoat, sir. So
This is true.
All
That
right.
is factual.
Sorry, I just was reading through the questions, seeing what the next one was. If you all are done on the current topic.
I think so.
All right. So for your during your time in the game, how has your view of knights and your view of knighthood changed?
ooh.
Mo sounded like he had a lot to say on that one.
When don't I?
Talk as much as you want. That's why we're here.
I was giving them the opportunity to go first. Honestly, when I first started the game, I hated every knight that I saw
Considering who
because
those
they were
knights were.
toxic as hell. They were toxic. When I first started the game, they were toxic. At least the ones that I dealt with. I can't say all knights, and I won't say all knights. The ones that I have experience with, they were toxic as hell.
Those three.
I mean, they caused people to leave the game. New people coming out there ready to have fun, play, get started. They made them leave. The Knights have always been, in my opinion, well, back then, the good old boys club. If you weren't socially accepted by them, you were never going to make it. I mean, a lot of that is changing now, and it's for the better. It's a slow process, but it's happening. And when I first wanted to become a knight, I wanted to come in and destroy every bit of that toxic foundation. But I found out that that foundation is big and thick. And it's going to take a lot more people who are tired of the good old boys mentality and ready to fight for it. So I realized that I couldn't fight it from the outside. And, you know, every once in a while, we do great things. You know, we try to talk to our populace. We try to talk to, you know, the people and let them know that where you see this as a whole, here's a group of us that is willing to, you know, to transform that. You want to talk to us, please come do it. You need help, ask. because I don't want to feel like I'm putting myself on you. So I would prefer you ask me, because I'm an old believer in knighthood means service. Okay, I'm done for now.
My experience was a little bit different from yours. Of course, I started off out in the Midwest, so that, different nights, different circle, but where I was at, Mine Parks, we didn't have any nights. In Omaha, in Sioux City, there were no nights. The only time I saw a night was when I traveled to Rackus, or like Throwdown in the Snow. There was a night there, but he was local to Des Moines, so I really didn't see nights. Nights had no part of the game in mind. Like I had no reference for a night. Then I moved out here to the East Coast, and that's when I started to get introduced to nights. I found the 3 that you had issues with, but then also ran into Jinx. I saw Garth get knighted. I saw a lot of people who did deserve it, that were good for the community, and I think that kind of helped overshadow those 3 negative nights. So I think I had a little bit of a different background when it came to nights than you did.
From Uni, she said, it has gotten better. At first, I thought knights were bad people. Once knights started traveling and talking to us, lower people, I'm assuming she means like in the lower, like half of the kingdom, my opinion has changed. But she agrees with Mo and that her opinion is getting better. I hope when I make knight, I can continue to change for the better.
I think people just need to remember that knights are people too.
Don't say that.
We can be.
That's a trigger. I just had that whole argument.
We can be good people, which a lot of us do try to be. But then occasionally you are going to have the bad apple mixed in as well, unfortunately. We do try to discourage those as much as possible. We try to make them grow as humans and be better. But also people sometimes have bad days. So, but I think that we are trying to push for more of a character aspect to the knighthood. If you don't have good character, you shouldn't be in it, in my opinion.
One of the best things I loved about my night circle is when I was acting out of character, they was quick to call me on my BS. I am not the politically correct person all the time. I try to be, but sometimes your anger just get the best of you and you say things, but they don't automatically like this. Now, Mo, we can't be having that. I mean, some people don't believe that knights literally will check each other. They think that, just because we don't dress someone down in public don't mean that we don't have arguments behind closed doors. Because there could be times where we be at each other's throats. Like, as and those private conversations aren't always PC. So you hear me like that, well, sir, that kind of behavior isn't warranted. No, behind closed doors, you stupid, no good. It gets biblical. I mean, being a knight, one of the best things that I've seen so far is never being afraid to tell another knight that they are messed up. You do not hold dear to what we consider knightly qualities. So first and foremost, apologize to the person that you just hurt. Secondly, learn from your mistakes. And if you don't, take the belt off.
You just kind of touched on something that I want to expand on a little bit more, actually. Like, if you're not a knight, you should not fear calling a knight out on their bullshit. Like, do it. Like, if we're acting out in a bad way, tell us we're acting out in a bad way. Like, we need that.
Oh, but when you do, take a witness.
I'll jump in
Never
there.
leave it to your word against theirs.
I want to jump in real quick just for, as also someone who's on the CoK, if you do have a problem with the knight, if you see a knight doing something that you think, is, unknightly, but you're not comfortable talking to that player, you can go to, one of the other knights, or that's why there is the GMOK position, the Guildmaster of Knights position to go, that you can go and you can take those issues to.
And if you don't feel comfortable talking to a knight because you think that that's the good old boys club, go to your monarchy.
Yep. Or if you think that
Never be afraid to call people out.
If you think that their actions are grievous enough, go to the board. Board, monarchy, GMOK. We have leadership there for a reason. That if you don't feel comfortable with that direct interaction, find someone to work on your behalf for you.
Ombudsman, even if like none of those boxes are able to be checked because of this, that, and like, for example, if all of those people are in the Circle of Knights, and you don't feel like comfortable to them, that's why they exist too.
Yeah.
We got checks and balances for a reason. Use them.
There is no need to allow negative behavior to persist.
Arden, how has your view on like knights and knighthood changed? I know you've also had like the, what could be considered a unique position, interacting with like the Circle of Knights as monarch and stuff, without actually, being a knight yourself.
Yeah, I guess that's fair. So I actually had a very similar like kind of view on knights to start with as mono, because like my first park was BFE. BFE has no knights. There's no knights on the Delmarva Peninsula pretty much. So you have to pretty much cross a bridge, and the first ones I met were like at events, or I think the occasional time when like Sir Jinx would come down from Blackthorn. Like that was like really my first experience to it. So it was kind of like, okay, those are those people over there, and they stand out. Like, as like a new player, like I was like 5 or 6 weeks in when I like went to an event, and that, like people would point them out. They're like, oh, that's like, that's Sir who so and so, and that's Sir whoever, and they're knights. And I was like, oh, they're the people that can play that class in the book we're not allowed to play. That was like literally like how that was how my view of it was at first. It was like, I don't know. And so they were like almost like a little bit intimidating, and at least until you get to know them, and then you just realize that they're people, just like everybody else has been saying. They're people just like every other player. And I will stop and talk to, not just knights, but like I'll talk to them just like I would anybody else when I see them at an event and I haven't seen them in a while. There'll be hugs and like, oh, how you doing? And like, blah blah blah. They I think there's a lot of I don't want to say that knights are kind of put on a pedestal, because I think that belittles, like saying that they are makes it sound like they haven't achieved anything, but that's not what I'm trying to say. I think that like people really put them in this far out of reach position, like, oh my gosh, like these people are unapproachable, I think is what I'm really getting to say. And people shouldn't do that, because I think that the knights exist explicitly to interact with those players and answer questions and answer and be helpful.
Knight equals service.
Yeah, exactly.
I put this bet on because I'm willing to do and say and help whoever I need to. If I'm not prepared to do that, I take my belt off.
It was kind of interesting interacting with the Circle of Knights, which I really only interacted with the GMOK. I don't think I ever really spoke with the I never like talked with any of them as a group or anything like that when I was Monarch. I don't even remember who the GMOK was when I was Monarch. It might have been Sir Shiva. I don't remember.
I believe it was Shiva when you were king.
Probably, because I don't remember having any conversation. It was either Shiva or Goldcrest at the time, maybe. I don't remember, but it was an interesting conversation to have. It's like, this is the person. Okay, we voted. This is the person, and it's like very like you have to take your step back. I'm like, okay, this is the person that all of these people have voted to approve for, and then you have to sit and like look at it. And I was like, is that chill or not? And then and every circumstance I think that came up to my desk was yes, absolutely. Like the Circle of Knights really doesn't put people up that aren't supposed to, at least that not that come to a successful vote, I should say. I don't know the inner works in the CoK, but they've never sent a candidate to me. I was like, oh my God, like why? So that's just like really stands to the pedigree of, you know, their work.
I think our circle is a little bit different than other kingdoms in regards to that. I mean, I've seen other kingdoms that have knighted people purely on a political basis, but we don't have that here in our kingdom, which I think is something to hold on to tightly.
Well, I think in other kingdoms, like the monarch can knight somebody without the approval of the CoK in certain kingdoms.
Yeah, the majority of kingdoms are like that,
which is absolutely buck wild to me, but
So we can see if there's we might be out of my my put together questions. But also, again, you know, if there's anyone in the chat that has a question they want to throw out, or, you know, for, you know, our wonderful panelists, if there's anything that, you know, has been on your mind that you've had in the back, you know, from a previous conversation that you want to bring up again, if you want to circle back to something that you want to keep, you know, keep talking about, expanding on, please. Glorious dead air.
Right.
I'm trying to think of, you know, if I can come up with any other questions.
I'm blaming my hair sound cable.
Sorry, we can't like teach you all the sweet spin tricks that the sword knights can teach you.
Yes, while they're sitting in the chairs. I guess, I mean, we could, you know, even close it off. You know, if you had to give somebody one piece of advice for, you know, holding office, and or, you know, someone comes to you and says, you know, I am interested in holding office / you know, becoming a crown knight, going down the crown path, you know, what do you tell them?
I think
it ain't one piece. Go ahead, Mona.
I think the biggest takeaway, in my opinion, would be, you know, there's a variety of offices to choose from. You know, each one requires different strengths. Find out what your strengths are and which office would be best suitable for those strengths. Once you are in an office and, you know, quote unquote, master the office, expand. You know, go to one that might not use all of your strengths, or might have you work on different abilities to work off of. But I would definitely recommend starting down that path. Pick something that you have strengths for and work on that.
I'd say that something that you can do if somebody comes with interest to you, you know, like make sure you don't scare them off of like taking office, because if you run around like you're all stressed out all the time because like, oh, this office is really, really hard, and like people see you running around like that, they're not going to come to you and ask for advice on how to do it. Like, I don't want to do that. That looks like it's really stressful. I
mean, it is.
But the job is stressful.
Yeah, but you can't let new people know that, because then they'll never do it.
Oh.
No, I in all seriousness.
Okay, the Wizard of Oz.
In all seriousness, I think you should be real with them, and you know, but kind of just be honest about it, and like, this is what you got to do. Sometimes there are stressful parts, but like we said earlier in this panel, there are parts that are really rewarding that kind of counteract that stress, and it makes it worth it.
if someone come ask me about holding office, the first thing I'm gonna tell them is to be accountable for your actions and your inactions.
Mm. Inactions is a very good point that gets left off the table when you're talking about this kind of stuff, because doing nothing is almost as bad as doing something wrong in some cases.
So from Uni,
Sometimes
she says,
I would rather you do something wrong than do
shush,
nothing.
Mo.
At least I know you're paying attention.
So from Uni, she says, remember to have fun. It's a game. Always keep a positive attitude and also to lead by example.
Hey, sugar and spice and
She is a
and
unicorn.
So question from Leal. We keep hearing you say ask for help when you need it. And I know that's something I struggled with for a long time. So for others, what internal signals do you have that let you know you need to ask for help? For example, when I'm getting frustrated or start to feel like I don't know what to do next, I know I need to ask for help.
That's easy. That's an easy question. When I start losing sleep over stuff is usually my that's probably the dead last sign that like I need to take a step back. I need to reach out to somebody, because I'll literally lose sleep, or I'll be at my job and I'll be like thinking about like, oh man, did I handle this like suspension right? And like, or that this doubt is very easy to kind of make you stress out about that kind of stuff. And that's the sign for me when you're like really, when you're physically like losing sleep and physically affecting how you do your job and stuff. That's when I would say at the very least you should ask for help at that point.
Whether you're struggling or it's a great day, you should never be afraid to say, hey, I need help. I mean, we all play the same game. We all have the same goal to make this game grow. So reach out, talk to people. Even if it's not about help, maybe garnering somebody's opinion might be helpful because it's different than yours. They can give you a different perspective.
So I know, like,
never be afraid to talk to people.
For you, Mo, you had said that you were not always the best at asking for help. So like for you, I think the question is more getting at, what was that thing that hit in your mind that clicked? Okay, I need to go ask somebody for help.
Oh God.
If you can remember, it was so long ago.
No, I lost track of days. I was so worried about trying to do this thing that my personal life suffered because I lost track of days. And I knew at that point it was too much. When this game started affecting my personal life in a negative way to where my relationships suffered, I knew I was putting in too much time and not, getting the proper help that I should have been asking for. I don't blame nobody else for that. It was completely on me. If I would have asked for help, I know people would have gave it to me. But unfortunately, I was younger and pride was my issue. But I've learned that I can still be prideful in asking for help. Because it takes a stronger person to say that I need help with something. What about you, scapegoat?
I think for me, a lot of it has to do, like, my warning sign is when I start dropping the ball on things. Like when I was prime minister, when I was king, I was very, very structured. That was one of my strengths, in my opinion. So when I noticed that, deadlines started to pass on certain things, that's when I realized that I needed, a little bit extra help in keeping myself on task, or, reaching out to other people to take over certain duties, things like that. I think it boils down to knowing your weaknesses, knowing what you need to work on, and being aware of when those weaknesses come out. And being weak on things isn't a bad thing.
Nope, it gives you somewhere to start adding strength.
Yep.
Let's see. All right.
I'm okay with being weak. I'm gonna get a paladin.
All right, so one more question I found. So what do you think about the masterhood requirement for knighthood?
I'm kind of on the
I'm still on the fence.
We know each other too well now. But no, I can see arguments both ways.
Yeah, I'm on the fence about it because it's like definitely. Because I've known quite a few people who's reached that level of masterhood in their, in their discipline, but they're horrible teachers. They're not very good people person. So, but their accolade of having a masterhood is just as great. I think the separation should happen. I just don't know how far apart it needs to go. Mm-hmm.
Yes.
I'm looking at you, Gingerbeard.
So Arden and Uni, how do you feel about this for being two people who are still, going down that path towards masterhood?
It seems like, I don't know if it's just because that's like always been that way, it almost seems like it does seem kind of like it's an 11th order almost in the way that the path is structured. And it seems, I'm not sure how you would separate it. It still seems like I'm really undecided on how I feel about it, because it almost seems so intrinsically tied to it at this point that I'm not sure like where it was to, like, is the intent that you would just go 10th and then like, okay, 10th and you can go to knighthood if you're good enough at it, and then like the masterhood is specifically teaching, or like I'm not sure where you would break that down at, and maybe that's because I'm not a knight or a master, so but I'd be interested to see where that conversation goes across Amtgard as we move forward.
So they all said they were floating this idea for giggles. What about 10 ladders? Then you can get masterhood and or knighthood after 10. So it would be 10, and then you would branch off to one of those directions from there.
I mean, there are some kingdoms that once you receive your 10th award, you don't go masterhood and then later on you get knighthood. A lot of kingdoms, once you reach your 10th, when you're awarded your masterhood, you're also awarded your knighthood. So, I mean, that's...
Yeah, they're tied together.
Yeah.
Okay, so it'd be this person's getting knighted at the ceremony. They get their masterhood and knighthood at the same time.
They're basically one and the same at that point.
Okay, that's one I've never seen.
Yeah.
I've seen where if you get your 10th, you get your knighthood, or you get your 10th and masterhood at the same time as like a standard thing, but not the masterhood knighthood.
Yeah.
I mean, it's
that's where we need to find that differentiation. Because with the awards, because they're so closely pitted together, the moment that you get to the 10th and a masterhood, people automatically assume and take ownership of that knight's problem. That's why I would prefer that separation, because just because you have this masterhood don't mean that you would make a good knight, because we need to get past what is skill and what is character.
Mm-hmm.
Like I said, you can be the greatest smith on the planet. You can make amazing swords. You can make the world's greatest armor. Don't mean that you're a great person. Don't mean that if somebody can come to you and talk to you, that you're going to be, well received. Some people don't want knighthood; they just rather have their masterhood because they know in themselves that, yeah, I'm not that one that's going to be sitting there like you come to me at 2 o'clock in the morning because you have questions.
I think there was a.
I mean, it takes a. Go ahead.
I think there was an idea that was floated like years ago in regards to moving knighthood down the chain. So instead of it being at the top, and basically if you put it down at say like, you know, 8th, like just throwing a random number out there, not saying you put it at 8th, but like if you put it down lower on to where people are qualified for knighthood at that point, and then you can still continue up the ladder for masterhood, because master, you know, you're the best of the best, you know, and supposedly in regards to that. Whereas knighthood, it should be more about the character of the person and not necessarily your skills and what you do.
So from Benoit in the chat, I feel like if we blend 10th and masterhood or knighthood and masterhood, it seems like it may make masterhood be in this weird space where it doesn't actually differentiate between the 2 levels. In either example, if masterhood exists, shouldn't it be a distinct space? And if not, why would it need to exist?
I'm all for a distinct space. That's what I'm preaching.
Mm-hmm. And yeah, Mona looked like you were a little bit confused, or just thinking. Is it the same
Just
face?
Yeah, usually.
He's basically saying the separation.
Yeah, there should definitely be a separation between masterhood and knighthood.
Just what that separation is I think the center of this conundrum here.
Yeah.
I mean, that separation will be like everything else is subjective.
Mm-hmm.
So
Because
if you were gonna,
because of how close it.
Sorry.
Go
So
ahead.
if you had the authority to make that separation, you know, any of you now, how would you make that separation between knighthood and masterhood look? Because how would that, you know, that would be a way, say you had the power to change the path in that way. How would that look for you?
I mean, I do tend to like the idea of having knighthood lower on. Like, basically, like I was saying a little while ago, if you're able to achieve knighthood at a lower ladder award and then continue on for masterhood, might be an easy way to separate it out. So that way it's more, knighthood's more about character, and then masterhood's more about actual skill in the ladder.
Do you suppose that doing that would in turn like make the progression of awards given slow down at an earlier rate, you know, because like, you know, as it stands, you know, once you get into that, depending on the order, every order's kind of got some like little ebbs and flows of where the hard spots are. Like sword is like 5th, like I think people say like fifth order of the warrior is just like miserable to get or something like that. But like, would you say that would slow down if you did something like that? It was like, oh well, now that knighthood's given it after 8, then like, man, getting like up like past like 6th order of whatever thing now is like really, really tough.
I think maybe initially, until we change the culture of what knighthood is, that might happen. But then once the culture adapts to the new progression, then I think it might go, it might balance itself out at that point in time. I would hope, at least.
Yeah, I think there would be some sort of like regulation period where like after a certain time, everything would kind of shift back into some sort of, I'm not sure if that would see more nights or less nights. It'd be interesting to see how that shook out.
I mean, I personally would hope there would be more nights, you know, because it'd be more about the, you know, the character aspect of it. We might see fewer masterhoods though because of
that. Well, the reason I say that is because like there's always this idea of like, oh, this thing was this difficult to get when I got it, so everybody else who comes after it should have to do it. I'm going to make it that much harder now because they should have to go through that. And that I'm not saying that's a good like viewpoint at all, but like there are people who think that way for sure.
It's an accurate viewpoint.
Yeah.
I mean, I could see a argument on it should at least be that point. Like the bar should be here. You shouldn't constantly be trying to raise the bar to make it more difficult. On the flip side, the bar shouldn't necessarily be lowered because that might, in a sense, cheapen what the people who came before had to do to get it. But I mean, I'm okay with the bar being lowered from, especially in regards to Knighthood. I mean, Knighthood is great, but at the end of the day, it's a funny title and a funny game,
I think it's interesting that conversation, because that idea of like it would retroactively like change a lot of people's eligibilities for things if that were like, for example, if that particular thing. And the only reason it came up is a similar conversation came up with one of the battle game night conversations of like this amount of like if you have this many paragons or whatever, you would be knighted for it. And there was a lot of discussion about that. It's like, well, now we have to change about how we think about giving out paragons, because we don't want this person to be knighted for this or that and the other. And everybody's got opinions, capital O. It's just, I'm not saying for one way or another. I just think it's interesting discussion.
I mean, part of the problems that I've always seen is we all suffer from back in my day isms.
Suffer from what?
Back in my day.
Back in my day isms.
Gotcha. Yeah.
We all like this. Well, we had to struggle to get it, so why would we make it easier for somebody else? They should have to do twice as much as we had to do.
I always see that argument brought up about like, in like not outside of Amtgard terms of like, oh, like things were so hard, like everybody thinks that it has to be hard. I'm like, no, what are you talking about? Like, you want the next generation.
You ride a school, but you go to school bus to school. I had to walk 30 miles.
Yeah, up and down, uphill
whatever.
both ways.
In the snow.
Yeah.
And the rain at the same time.
With no shoes.
Does anybody have anything else they wanted to discuss for that topic? Everyone good? I know I wish it showed me when people were typing in the chat, because I know I don't want to say like, hey, we're done, and somebody still has a question. But what I'm going to do is, so yeah, it's 3:45. It's almost 4 o'clock stop time. So if anybody wants to stick around and has any other questions, feel free to. Like I said, the chat's open. Just for recording purposes, I don't know if we want to open up, like, if people want to take their mic off, it would be faster. But hold on, let's see. Oh, thank you. I'll just send me a suggestion that I think is fantastic. So I'm going to say, 20-second rule. If you've got a question in the next 20 seconds, say yes, so I know that you are typing, and we'll wait. But 20 seconds will start now. So if you're going to be typing a question, just say yes in the chat, so I know that we'll wait for you to finish.
Do.
All right, it's been about 20 seconds, and doesn't seem like anybody has any other questions, so we'll just go ahead and cut it off here. But again, I want to say thank you for everyone that tuned in and listened. Thank you for anyone that is watching this after the fact. I'm hope you get something out of this. Thank you for all of our wonderful panelists who came and answered your questions and had this discussion. And thank you very much to Denkri for being our wonderful recorder and tech person. And she will be editing this and getting out as soon as she is able to. And with that, everyone, have a good night.